Welcome, agents, to the Federal Bureau of the Friend Zone. What up, viewers? What up? What up? I am Calc Soups, and I am sitting down to record our March episode of the Friend Zone, where we all sat down and played Control, and we're just going to sit down and talk about our thoughts about it. This is kind of a book club monthly talk show where we just kind of talk about latest games come out. Control, the Ultimate Edition, came to PlayStation 5 as the PS Plus game, and so we all decided to sit down and play it. So let's jump in and meet everybody. Cool. First we have Brian.
Hello, I'm Brian. I finished the game 5 minutes ago.
Great. We've got Eric.
Hello. My backstory is classified.
Ooh, redacted. We got Kevin.
Redacted.
Hey, I decided to fuck up my intro because I thought it would make me seem more relatable to the audience. I hear that's a thing that people do to foster parasocial relationships. So, oops.
We got Patrick.
What's up? I'm Patrick, and I am the new director of the Federal Bureau of Control.
Ooh, and we got Steven.
And I'm also here.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I know that some people had played this, before it came to PS Plus. But if we can go back to kind of what we were expecting or how we would describe the game, that's usually where I like to start. So yeah, go for it.
I'm guilty of I actually have done. I played the Ultimate Edition again when it dropped on PlayStation. This is my second full playthrough of the game, which I guess gives you an idea that I like it quite a bit.
There you go.
But going in, I'm sure we'll go over this in more detail later. But I'm a big fan of Remedy in general, and SCP has always been sort of a fandom that I've been a part of for years and years now. So this was kind of a perfect storm for me. So I was pretty excited even just going in the first time.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I touched it was halfway through March, and I don't really know. I knew about the SCP connections. I mean, I think I like Remedy. I'm trying to list off all the games that Remedy has done.
I mean, the question, we might as well get to this sooner rather than later. Show of hands, who all played Alan Wake?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So I'm raising my
game.
Yeah, exactly.
I played Casey's copy of Alan Wake.
I think how much you love, if you love Alan Wake, that can play, that was a big factor in my enjoyment of Control in a lot of ways. Especially, I don't know if everybody played the DLC.
Yeah, I haven't.
I think I watched you play the DLC, Kev.
No, I mean, for Control.
Oh,
like the AWE and the Foundation.
Yeah,
DLC.
I wasn't sure if we were gonna go over it today, so I haven't touched the DLC yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started the DLC, but
if you like Alan Wake, play the AWE.
I don't even know if
I
don't even know if I'm fully done with the game. Like I've seen, the credits have rolled twice, and I don't know if I'm done yet. So
I think you're good.
Time is real.
Yeah.
You got through the fake credits and you got the real credits, so you're good.
This game has me questioning everything about life. So I don't know.
Yeah, there you
You're
go.
still playing right now.
This is part of it.
Am I in that damn hotel still? Do I have to ring the bell at the lobby again?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
Man.
Yeah.
I guess that's something too. Full spoilers for just the main game. What are we doing here?
For just the main game.
That's what spoilers for just the main game.
I will stay. There's not too much else in the DLC, but I'll stay away from that stuff then.
Yeah, and then I was also wondering about I don't know how many people played Quantum Break, which I think was the when Remedy was under Microsoft, that was their
Quantum Break. No.
That was
I
the
haven't
one.
played any of the Remedy games.
Yeah.
So.
Not Max Payne.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Okay, that reminds me, I am a Remedy fan.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
So,
Fun
good
bit too. The guy who wrote this game is a guy named Sam Lake, And not only did he wrote Control and Alan Wake, and he's been writing for Remedy for a long time. He's also the face model for Max Payne, so he looks like Max Payne.
That's great.
Oh, that's a dream.
Always needs to poop.
Yep, pretty much. That's where they got that from.
Okay.
He's a great writer. Big fan.
He's very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
His name is Lake, and he wrote a character named Alan Wake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's a
Sam
writer.
Lake wrote.
Yeah.
Sam Lake wrote Alan Wake, which is a character named, about a character named Alan Wake in a lake.
Yes.
Who's
Who's a writer? Who's a writer?
He also loves his meta shit. So
yeah, as for this game, yeah.
Yeah.
I always like talking about, like, I've just been noticing it a lot with games lately, of like how I get introduced to the game, and the fact that like you just start inside the bureau and then you're just like, okay, what do I do? Like, I've just been more and more aware of how games kind of introduce me to their world, and I loved just like, I'm in the bureau now, and like, what's going on? And then like,
it kind of makes it puts you in Jesse's shoes, right? Because
Yeah.
you just kind of walk in and it's like, what is this? And
Did
you
she
kind of have
just
to
walk
wander
in?
around.
Ooh.
Yeah, she just walks.
Yeah.
I still don't know the answer to that.
Yeah,
I'm not
sure.
certain she did.
I mean, at least from her perspective, it seems like she does at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, right off the bat, this game is like, we're not going to hold your hand.
Yes, and I appreciate that
Yeah.
about this.
Especially
I appreciate it like
Yeah.
90% of the time. There's a few times where I'm just like, can you just tell me where to go?
Yes. Oh my god, when we talk about like playthrough and stuff, like when I got first sent to research, I was like, I don't know where to go from here.
Yeah. Huh?
Research is the worst freaking.
Well, there's so many
Like,
levels.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get
Verticality.
lost in research. Anyway.
Yeah.
There's a number of times I got lost. There's one where it's just like literally like in Central Executive, and it's like, go talk to Dylan.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like,
They don't tell you where Dylan is.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
so
like,
you have to-
he's up in the upper level of,
Yeah.
of Central Executive. And I'm like, what? And
Yeah.
I seriously ran around for like 30 minutes, just like, where the fuck is this?
Yeah. I also had a hard time finding the jukebox because they're like, oh, it's also in Central Executive, and I'm like, I
Oh.
didn't find it when I went around the first time.
That's another
Yeah.
complaint I'll have about my playthrough, but we can get to that later. Freaking jukebox.
Well, yeah, I mean, then, so I'm not, I mean, I guess I'm going to leave most of this up to like Kevin and other SCP fans, but I was not, like too, I don't know, like the closest I get is like, the 1 or 2 X-Files episodes I've seen. So like, that's most of what I know. And I was like, okay, this kind of gives me to it a lot of redacted documents and all that kind of stuff. But then like the objects and powers and some of the verbiage, I was like, oh, I can buy into this. Like, it just makes sense to me.
Yeah, and I mean a lot of that, Control is creative enough. Like a lot of that is its own thing. It more borrows the style than the substance for us.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's just the tone, the sort of.
Yeah,
the
the sort of-
bureaucratic tone.
Yes.
yeah, the bureaucratic tone, the sort of dry technical documents describing, fantastical events. It's essentially, and the cosmic horror elements are all sort of, thematically very much inspired by, but Control is its own thing. It's not just like a
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
It's
not
not,
the
You
one.
say
it's not
you say
SCP the game.
SCP though, and I kept thinking this playthrough, going, man, this is basically sci-fi Ministry of Magic.
Okay.
It's closer to that than the SCP's, like especially like the SCP Foundation in the greater, like sort of canon, as much as SCP has a canon. The Bureau of Control is closer to like Patrick said, almost a Ministry of Magic sort of feeling in some ways. I don't know. The SCP is weird because it's like it doesn't have a firm canon because everything is sort of crowdsourced and written in open source forums and stuff. So
Yeah.
like there's a lot of contradictory storylines and stuff in
Oh,
there.
sure. Which
So
is,
it is again more of like a framework and a loose shared setting for a bunch of writers to play in.
Yeah. Very fun setting.
Yeah, it's like the idea of like, it's fun to think of like, oh, a floppy disk can give you levitation powers or telekinesis.
Oh, yeah.
Or here's a cosmic horror that's stuck inside a refrigerator. Don't stop looking at it. You know,
Yeah,
The,
I love the fridge.
Yes.
Love it.
fridge is maybe one of the closest things to an SCP reference that I've seen too, because the first SCP article was a statue that needs to be directly observed at all times.
Oh, okay.
Um, but that's more of like a weeping angel thing, where if you look away, it can
Right.
move and
Okay.
break your neck. Um,
Yeah.
where the fridge added an extra layer. Control does a cool thing with its altered items and stuff, where it all ties into the astral plane and how it works there,
Yeah.
which adds sort of more cohesion than you see in SCP. Because SCP, you've got like old gods and magic and sci-fi nonsense, and it's all just sort of mashed together because it's thousands of authors writing individual articles. Whereas
right?
by necessity, Control's a bit more focused to its benefit, setting-wise.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
go for it, Brian.
No, I was just agreeing with Kevin.
Yeah, the one thing that I had that like I don't know, I wrote here like, the power fantasy, we can get to like that and builds and stuff. But I also had like a disconnect of like I don't and I understand like it makes sense like or like it feels good in the game to like play the game, like the mechanics feel good, but just like the idea of like being sent to go track down a unicorn and then like getting there and like in order to track down the unicorn, like what I would usually associate with like SCP of like investigation, maybe even kind of like how I would play a Cthulhu game, which is like investigation and then we go explore the place. Yeah, but then it's just like, but then I'm just running around the bureau shooting things, and I'm not. Again, like I said, I enjoyed like the mechanics of like shooting things and like the powers I get, but it just kind of had this like small bit of disconnect between like boring bureaucratic stuff and then like shooting things.
That's probably my biggest criticism of this game. It's a little bit too shoot 'em up for me. I found the times I enjoyed the game the most were when I was like solving puzzles using the telekinesis and stuff, and then all of a sudden I had to fight the same sort of ramshackle group of baddies again, except now there's more of them or whatever like that. I like, can I just like do this like a platformer and have fun puzzles and stuff, and like have it like spooky puzzle time rather than like shoot 'em up.
Yeah, there is.
It's the same problem that Alan Wake had. I'm just like, why is this a shooter?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's the same. It's like any of these sort of, and yeah, that's something that Remedy does really well, as particularly in Control and Alan Wake, is like you set up this really great ambiance and setting, but then the game mechanics, like it's like we talk about with Cthulhu stuff all the time. It's like it kind of detracts from that setting and that theme if you can shoot the eldritch abominations in the face and make them go away.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Control in universe does manage to sort of justify it in a way that I was able to buy into, because you have all these paracausal weapons and you have a extra dimensional entity, like basically a good eldritch abomination living in your head. So
yeah, I think it justifies it like in the lore, like in the fiction, it makes sense. It's just like from a gameplay perspective, I just kind of wish it wasn't a shooter. I think it'd be more fun like if it was like more of a platformer with powers, like where you can grab things and throw things and shield, and I don't know. The game just has, to me, like 30% more action than it needs because it just kind of pads out the game.
When you say that, yeah, from like a pure gameplay perspective, I actually kind of find the combat to get tedious after a while. I think there's just like too much of it, like you said.
Especially like when you clear a room and then the enemies just come back every time you go back to that room. And you're just like trying to get from place to place, and it's like
maybe this is a good part to talk about my least favorite part about the game too. The mods are awful, and I hate them, and I wish that there wasn't random drop mods in this game, and I don't know why they are.
Yes. I
hate the mod system.
Yeah, I was wondering how much of that was like the Ultimate Edition of like having random events that spawned. I was like, this feels like a DLC that we would add, but
no, that was all in the base game.
Okay. Yeah, the random missions felt
just like weird kind of gamey things that
like
it's like why do we have random like drops with random drop chances and stuff in this game? Everything about the environments and everything is so curated.
Yeah.
It doesn't really fit.
Exactly. For me, why make it gamey? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it screams like, "Hey, we made this really cool game. It's about all these sort of like cosmic horrors and stuff." And then like the people at the top are like, "Yeah, but we gotta sell it to people who like to shoot things. So like we gotta sell it to gamers.
You know what's
So
really popular in the
make
industry
it a
right now?
video game. Yeah, make it a video game.
You know what's really popular in the industry right now? People love random drops. Let's put a mod system and can we do like crafting for some reason? It's like okay, I guess
Yeah.
we were just gonna give them these. I guess now they have to craft them.
Yeah.
There's currencies now.
Oh, and all the mods were not good. Like
No.
Also, all the
90% of
mods
them.
Oh my god! And then like because I'm a nutcase, like I still want to pick up every mod, so that means I spend like just an inordinate amount of time in my inventory deleting old mods
Mm-hmm.
I don't want.
Yep.
And like even after I beat the game, I'm still getting like level 1 mods, and it's like, what
Yeah.
is why do I need this to happen?
Well, and it's like I plug in the one mod I like into the gun that I like, and then I never switch it out because this is the one. Like I'm using Pierce, which is a sniper rifle. I'm gonna use headshot and I'm gonna use zoom, or I'm gonna do the damage while aiming. Like why would I switch anything else at it? So like so stop giving me fucking or freaking
Shotgun
damage
mods or whatever,
damage while
that
while my health is low.
Yeah, and that even gets worse in the DLCs because they add like new mod types in the
Oh
DLCs.
my god.
And they're all like even more niche than some of the ones in the base game. They're like really specific to certain guns and powers and conditions. And it's like I don't want any of these.
Or you get a mod for a.
I have a flat damage mod that is better than every single one of these things.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I have you get a level 2 mod for a gun I haven't even built yet. It's like great, okay, this will be garbage. Thanks for the 50, control bucks or whatever they're called.
I guess it's a testament to be like. There's a lot of these sort of gamey systems in this game that I am not a big fan of. So I guess it's a testament to how strong I find the narrative and the setting and the rest of the game that I still wanted to play through it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it feels good to like the shooting doesn't feel bad. And
Nope.
It
Absolutely
also
not.
has the best telekinesis in like any video
game. So it's like the way it controls is excellent, even if it's like, okay, I'm getting kind of tired of clearing out this same room. And I don't care about these mods. It still feels good to play. So that loop is solid. It's just like there's all these other extra layers where it's just like, why again?
Exactly. They tacked on all these weird extra systems that the game is solid enough. It didn't need these things.
Yeah. I'm just happy you didn't have to pay real money to get like jukebox tokens or some crap or new outfits.
I know. Doesn't that feel like it could have been a premium currency, or like they might have talked about it being a premium currency?
You turn Audie into like a freaking store. You go like, all right, hello, my assistant. I have the new things for you here.
No.
Check the store.
No, hold on. I can understand what you're saying, so that's not good enough.
Yeah, seriously.
You're not nearly garbled enough.
You couldn't have did it. You can't receive. No, you always talk. Yes. What?
I freaking love Audie.
I love Audie, but sometimes I'm like, dude, I only need subtitles for you. This is absurd.
Yep. I mean, and even with the subtitles, like he speaks in all these weird colloquialisms and stuff. You can't understand half of what he's saying.
And then he like starts speaking in Finnish, and you're like, what?
Yeah. So.
Speaking of. Go for it.
Audie's a really interesting character because you meet him right away, right? Like he's the first person you ever meet, and you're immediately unsettled by him because he's a weirdo.
Yep.
But then,
to get you working.
But then at the same time, like towards the end of the game, you're kind of relieved to see Audie. Like he's kind of like this kind of
breath of fresh air.
Okay, things are okay in a sense.
That's because he's the one that's really in charge.
He helps you. Yeah, you're his assistant.
And when he gives you his tape recorder and you go through the ashtray maze, it's like one of the best scenes.
Best spot. That's like the best sequence in the whole game.
I love it so much.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Also, props to like Remedy has like some bands. There's like the music in the game is
great. Music was spectacular.
Yes.
Really great. I Shazammed and have in my iTunes library every game or every song I've heard in this game.
Nice.
Just because I'll be like listening to it and it'll play in the background. I'm like, oh damn, this is good. And and I'll save it because it's so good, and I'll listen to it.
Even
for like 2 days.
Ati's radio songs.
So
Well, not the like the Ati
So
tango,
they,
Not the tango?
not the tango.
yeah,
The
so
Spanish
they
tango.
so there's this band that does they did a lot of the like music for Alan Wake too. They're called Poets of the Fall. They're a
Yes.
Finnish rock band.
Ooh.
I downloaded the album that the song from this game is on. It's a good album. It's
Yeah.
a good album.
Wow.
But yeah, they did all of the like old gods of Asgard songs from Alan Wake, and then they also did like the Take Control song, and there's one other one you can find of theirs in like a testing area in Control. I don't know if you guys found that in research.
Yeah, it's
So-
like the sound room down below.
Yes.
research.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in iTunes library, the rock song you go through the ashtray mazes is by the old gods of Asgard. Like I'm
Oh,
like
nice.
Oh, is it?
like
That's
like
a weird
in
meta thing.
yeah.
Nice.
So
So it has
it's
the
like
old
a,
gods of Asgard from Alan Wake credited for the song.
yeah,
that
well,
that
yes,
plays
yeah.
in Control. That's hilarious.
Yeah, like the band listed is the old gods of Asgard.
See, and that's why like knowing a little bit about Alan Wake, it's like there's so many tie-ins like that that
Yeah.
are just like that just massively increased my my enjoyment, especially of the second playthrough.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I thought that the guy who sings in the old gods of Asgard sounded a lot like the guy from Poets of the Fall, and then you find out that they're probably the same guy. They just
Yeah,
have a
they're the
different
same
same guy. There's more songs about them. Ooh.
Yeah, I like took the time to like read the whiteboard in the research area, and I was just like, what is all this random crap? And like, okay, maybe it's broken out by a song, and then like you actually like step in the room, and then it starts like thrumming, and I'm just like sitting here like, man, this rocks.
Yeah, it's like, hey, this song's
pretty
great.
good.
So like that's just another like example in this game of like how incredible detail they've added to this game about thematically tying in different stuff and like making it a really enjoyable time playing the game. But then I feel like somebody said, hey, what if you made it a video game rather than like a cinematic or a playable movie or whatever?
Here comes the executive. Modern video game audiences expect loot systems and
We need
video
guns.
games.
Yeah.
So thank God you didn't have to like you couldn't drop guns. They didn't drop guns.
Oh God, yes.
Oh God, yes. I mean,
mods are bad enough.
You need just the one gun. That's important.
Speaking of guns and stuff, what were like everybody's builds?
Oh.
I'll tell you right now.
Full disclosure, by the end of the game, I kind of made a point to use my gun as little as possible.
Okay.
Sure.
So you're like all energy and stuff?
I was like full throw damage and energy.
Nice.
And then when I did have to use my gun, I pretty much exclusively used the rocket launcher one.
Whoa.
And it was just there for while my energy was recharging.
Yeah,
definitely.
I pretty much did the same. Full throw damage and seizing.
Yeah,
seizing.
Yeah.
Mind control. As soon as I unlock mind control, it's like, well, all my other points are useless. I'm putting the rest of them in mind control. Yeah.
I discovered the other abilities way later in the game because I was like trying to do main story stuff.
Sure.
And so I had maxed out my launch damage before I even knew seizing was a thing. So I didn't have enough like points to change it. But I used Pierce. As soon as I got Pierce, I used that exclusively. I only used grip. I used grip to get the bad guys down enough so I could seize them.
Nice.
So I would grip the first guy I saw, seize him, and then I'd use Pierce for everything else, and then also throw in shit. I'll do a bunch of stuff.
Nice.
I was grip, spin, and then throwing, seizing, and then no point. I didn't have any points in shield, no points in melee. It was all just throwing shit and seizing people and using my machine gun.
Yep.
Nice. Yeah, I was grip. I had put a bunch of points in throwing stuff until I got mind control powers, and I was like, I have to have mind control powers. And then I made Pierce because I feel like there was a point where it was like you have to make a second gun just because. I don't remember if that was like a point in the game, but so I made Pierce, and I was like, I used it like once or twice. Like when a freaking mission, a bureaucratic mission or whatever, told me to.
Like countermeasures or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know if I just had some. I think I had some good mods. I did use Surge basically. Once I got Surge, which is like the rocket launcher one, that's basically all I used. I did still use Grip every once in a while because it's hard to hit like airborne enemies with the rockets.
Okay.
Yeah, Grip's so good for those floating guys that try to blow you up.
Yeah. I also got in the habit, like, eventually I just realized, man, I don't like shooting at these guys. And I realized if I throw something at them and they dodge it, there's like a cooldown before they can dodge again. So I would just rapidly throw things at them until they died.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like fire one or two because I had Grip fully leveled, like to level 3 or whatever. So I'd pop like 1 or 2 rounds into like a fly guy, and then I could just grab him.
Yes.
Like if his health would be low enough, I could just grab him and then throw him at the rest of them.
Yes.
Oh man.
It
the
was
environment, the grabbing and throwing, the fully destructible environments.
Yeah.
Just the way that plays is great.
Yeah, I just kind of switched that as the whole game.
Yeah. No.
For me, it was basically the whole game because I just didn't use any of the other shit.
You don't need the gun if you do that, right? For me, like Pierce, I had like, plus 40% while zoom, damage after kills, energy to headshots.
Nice.
So I was like, I shoot a one shot at a guy's head, and like even the big guys would be down 75% of their health or whatever.
That was pretty much my experience too. Same as Brian was using Pierce to, or what was the name of the rocket launcher one? I used that quite a bit.
Charge.
Excuse me. Surge is the DLC one. Surge is the one in the AWE DLC, which is I mean, minor DLC spoilers. Surge isn't very good. It's you shoot like a mine that you can detonate. And it doesn't do very good damage, and it's basically like, why am I not just using the rocket launcher?
Right. Can you like shoot them off corners or anything like that, like around corners?
They stick to surfaces, and
then you detonate them. Okay.
But it's like, it's not the kind of game that you like want to lay traps for enemies.
Yeah. When do you have time for that?
It's like I tried using it at a novelty for a little bit, and I was just like, I don't want,
because the enemies all just appear around it. It's like out of nowhere. They're just like suddenly there. So it's like, when am I setting traps and leading them places?
It was like not anyway. Yeah. It's like it's the only weapon mode you get from the DLCs, and it was really disappointing.
Boo.
See, I like the idea of like we have this gun that has been every mythical weapon of time.
Yes.
Right. I like that idea, and it can switch from different modes. So that's cool. I like that. But it's like, does it need to be in this game? Can it be in like a spin-off game or something like that? Like where it's more, shooty based, where you can take cover and stuff. Like can we have like a Call of Duty Control kind of game or something?
There you go. Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah, I almost wish the different modes were, because it talks about it like it used to be Excalibur and Mjolnir. It's like I almost wish those were the modes. It's like
melee
one was a gun,
cool.
like a really good melee weapon. Maybe you can shoot lightning bolts with Mjolnir. But
that would have been cool.
Yeah,
man. I will say, I really love how the gun animates when you change modes, and like it flies around and goes into different shapes and stuff.
Yeah.
That was very cool.
Well, I just noticed that the shape of the gun, of this little piece of the gun, matched the different crosshairs.
Yeah.
That like, and that's like a wonderful little, it's like if it's Pierce or whatever, it has an X, then the thing will like pop up and be in an X, and then like, spin. I think is a Mercedes logo, right?
Yeah.
As it's like
sponsored content.
I enjoyed there's a slight degree of Metroidvania to this game, which I always
yes.
I always for instance, I spent probably about 20 minutes running around the same 3 hallways of the ashtray maze before I knew I couldn't go there.
Yes.
Anymore.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Like every time I got a new ability, I was like, I gotta go back to the maze and see if this is how I get through that freaking passage I can't get through.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, I tried like maybe if I run faster, maybe if I try to like
Maybe if I can fly, like
yeah, can I fly through it and use like my dodge ability to like dodge faster into the hole? Nope.
nope. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
so this game activated my completionist OCD, like any other game where it's like, oh, here's a big map and a bunch of question marks on the map. I want to see what those question marks are,
Oh.
and they have to go like, Brian, no, like the game will tell you what the question marks are. Just play the game, Brian. Don't
Sometimes
worry.
in the worst ways too, because like I'd be like, oh, like here's this big new space I'm in now, and I'm like, I gotta find all the little chests.
yes.
And it's like I don't need to find the chest because I don't want the stuff in it. I don't need
it's
it.
like, oh boy, more mods.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm like, but I also just can't leave it. If I see
Yeah.
it, I'm like, oh, there's one in there. Oh, there's a clipboard. I gotta grab that clipboard. I swear I was just in here and that clipboard wasn't there. Are they reappearing? What's going on?
One more critical thought, so I can craft it into whatever the freak I need to. Yeah.
Give me an astral blip so I can upgrade my whatever. But I did love. I think the videos really did a really good job of like immersing you into the sort of
yes. I was gonna
corporate bureaucracy.
Yeah, the live action. That was the next point. It was just
Okay,
like
the
live
guy who
action
plays
content. Sorry, Brian.
the guy who plays Dr. Darling deserves some kind of acting award. I don't know. I really enjoyed his performance.
Yes. Well, and then at the very end when he's in that music video, like it's a full music video with like
that clinched the whole thing for me. I was
Yes.
like, oh my god, this is amazing.
There's like multiple of him running around or whatever.
Yeah, and he's playing a song about Jesse.
Did anyone else find the live action segments being a little bit distracting when the rest of the world was was animated?
Yes, but not in a way that I disliked. To me it's sort of particularly things like the Threshold Kids videos kind of added to my sense of unease at a lot of points that I found kind of useful for my immersion. If that makes sense.
I found it really distracting when when I first was seeing them, because I'm like, is this live action? Is this like animation? It was sort of in that like uncanny valley space, and I'm like, oh no, it is live action. And there were also a few other times like it would cut to like shots of Jesse, and it would be live action. It would just be like I just found it really distracting.
Yeah,
I don't know. I like it.
Me too.
And I think maybe I'm just used to it because again, it's like something they did a lot in Alan Wake.
Yeah.
So it just feels like a trademark of their style. But but Vicky came in while I was playing, and when I was watching like a Dr. Darling video, and she was like, "Wait, is that live action? That looks weird compared to the rest of the game." So I think it is pretty divisive.
I just didn't understand like from a storytelling perspective, like why that was the choice that was made. Like because it'd be one thing like if the rest of the game was not very graphically sound and you needed like to really be able to like show people's emotion and stuff like that. You think like back to like early PC games where there would be live action components.
Yeah.
But in a game in which, the faces for the most part are rendered like pretty well.
Yeah.
I just didn't for me it was a little distracting, which is like, why did they do that when they could have done it in the same style as the rest of the game? It almost felt like you were, especially in a game where like so much of it is about looking into other worlds, it felt like something from another world was coming in. But because obviously they weren't from another world, that was a little that was confusing to me. Like, no, I wasn't obviously confused, but I felt jarred. It felt discordant. I don't know.
The Dr. Darling bits didn't bother me, but what bothered me is when like they'd have a live action Jesse like sequence or something.
Yeah.
And
like
then
her thrashing about or something.
Yeah. And then
towards the end there where there's like all the his stuff going on.
And then they go back to her render. And it's like, like that's where I was like, that's
Darling is fine because we don't see Darling.
Yeah, I think that was what got me was there's no in-game model for Darling, so he didn't bother me as much. I didn't like the Jesse and the Dylan. I guess you never really see live action Dylan actually, which makes it even weirder because you see like sequences of that with Jesse, but not anyway.
I usually find live action stuff just additive, just because it's an extra layer of effort that I appreciate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a
like
fan, so I wonder if part of it too is just like they're like people really liked like Night Springs and Alan Wake, so let's just do that again.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I especially some of the other live action stuff I could do without, but I really loved the Dr. Darling videos. Just I found the actor that they had doing Darling like really magnetic, and I liked his performance a lot.
Yes.
Same guy who portrays Alan Wake.
Oh.
Really?
Yep.
Oh wow,
Oh,
he
I didn't
looks
know that.
very different.
I mean, it's been 20 years or something.
I'm pretty sure. I remember looking that up and being like, "Oh, it's the same guy from Alan Wake."
Wow.
Okay.
I'll have to go back and look at that.
Yeah,
That's
seriously.
crazy. I gotta compare those two now.
Speaking of like animations and stuff, like very early on, I figured out like in cutscenes, like, or at least in my playthrough, like Jessie's eyebrows never moved, and so it just like she just never felt like I could never get into like her emotional state because her eyebrows just never moved, and I was like, I know they have like full facial motion capture, but like it must stop at the eyebrows because and eventually I got fixated on it, and I was just like, I don't understand what emotion that actress is trying to portray because her eyebrows do not move.
I actually really don't like the facial animations in this game, very much. I find them kind of uncanny. I know it's probably full motion capture on like the mouth movements and stuff, but man, the way that the mouth movements are mapped onto the models, like everybody when they smile, the smiles are just like a little too big for what they made the models capable of.
Yeah, I think the faces in general are just too big on everyone's head.
Yeah, it's particularly
especially
bad with Emily Pope.
Arish. Emily and
Oh yeah,
Arish. Like,
yeah. Emily and Arish are just like they. Yeah, they
like
just
Arish's eyebrows, like his little like I don't know what you call the side of like your hair or whatever. Like
yeah.
I don't know if you look at like the way where his eyebrows are and where his hairline starts. His hairline starts like halfway between his eyebrow. It's just doesn't fit. It's very odd looking.
Interesting.
It's like I like the characters, I like what they were saying, but man, watching their faces go, it's just like, oh, I don't like this.
Yeah, Jesse was the only one that rubbed me in the wrong way. Where it's just like, move your eyebrows, act like you were just told that your brother's been here the whole time. Like, move your eyebrows. Like, it should cause some sort of thinking motion in your upper face.
We spend so much time zooming in really close to Jesse's eyes.
Yes.
Yeah. To see those individual eyelashes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I think
all
that.
Go ahead.
Man, sorry, I was gonna change gears a little bit. So
I think the guy who they got to play Langston, though, that all added to how much I don't like Langston because watching him talk, I was like, please stop talking. I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Oh yeah, Langston.
Yeah, he's like
he's
I'm just
Panopticon
manager
guy
down here.
Oh yes,
it's like the bad prison foreman kind of.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Sends a bunch of fetch quests around the joint.
Yep.
Guy, you're making my job so much easier.
I'm like, what is your job? Just sitting there?
Yeah, you left the dude just staring at the refrigerator, you a-hole.
Yeah.
Well, if something that you want is Langston's voice actor doing like bad poetry to the sound of a theremin, then check out the DLCs.
Oh boy.
There's at least 2 recordings of like Langston doing really bad poetry with theremin in the background. It's it's awful.
Huh.
Oh boy.
I'll have to rain check that one.
Yeah, maybe skip those, but unfortunately the rest are pretty good. But
I did love the like interactions you would have with characters though, where like somehow they made it believable that like, oh, you're the new director, and they're like, oh, all right, well, here's the deal. Like the way that all the performances were done, like really sold the vibe and made everything feel believable, like within the fiction. And I even loved like the way like conversations would end. Like you finish talking to Arish in Central Executive, you're like, okay, well, I've got to go do stuff, and he's like, hey, yeah, me too. You're not the only one who's busy. Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
it just made it made everything feel very like real and lived in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved how mundane it was, and it was just like, oh, you're the new director now, and like it's like this happens like every couple weeks. Something happens, something bad happens.
This shit again. All right, well, here's the deal.
Yeah. Oh, you got the gun. Okay, well, let's get you caught up then.
I really like how the portraits shifted. Like when
Yeah.
you first walk in, it's Trench, and then as soon as you become the director, like everywhere they
Yes.
change, and like it doesn't really draw attention to itself, but you're like, oh, it's that. And then sometimes you'll see them where they're like crooked and they still have changed, so it's just
Which just makes me wonder, you know, like, I don't know, you know, what's really going on.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then occasionally it's just out his butt.
Definitely love to hear your theories at some point. Maybe that's a discussion for another time.
The Control Theories channel. Well, yeah. What do we think of the like? I don't know, the pace, in the game length, and all that. I was actually surprised. I thought this would. I found this remarkably more bite-sized than I thought it would be. I thought this was going to be a 34-hour, 40-hour game, and I got through it in 15, 20, and I was like, okay, this felt good. Felt like a good length. So
interesting.
I thought it was great. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I kind of really appreciate this. Is something that I hope more games do in the future. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It comes in, it does what it wants to do, and then it doesn't pad itself. There's really not a lot of padding in there.
I have to disagree.
Yeah,
I think the game's 3 to 5 hours too long because of combat padding. Like there's just so many instances of like there's so much time I spent just fighting like groups of enemies or doing the same things or just I wish it fit bit faster.
I was thinking more narrative sense. You're right. I guess if I consider combat, then yeah, absolutely, it is.
Just in terms of total play time, yeah. Like it was like 15-ish hours, but it's still like 5 of those hours is like combat. Like I'm either doing again.
Yeah, you're like fighting through an area you've already been to, or something.
Or fighting waves of enemies in an area where it's just time I didn't really enjoy, honestly.
That's fair.
Yeah, I agree with Patrick. I sort of by the end, I was ready to like finish it, and there were especially some of the last combats. Like I didn't even do any of the jukebox stuff because I was kind of like I was kind of like yeah, I was just kind of done with I was ready to, I guess, get to it, if that makes any sense.
Well,
and there was a lot of there was just a lot of like time in which, especially going from like encounter to encounter, and any time you had to like go from one place to another, undoubtedly you were gonna like run into like several rooms of fights, which God forbid you lose one of those by carelessness. And
I don't know
how to do that again.
I don't know how many times I was in a combat situation. I think it would be done, and then the stupid exploding hiss would show up behind me, and I'd have to start over. And it was just like,
or a rocket you can't see.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the rockets.
Fuck those things, dude.
Yeah.
So I ended up going into the accessibility menus and like cranking up the health because it was just like I'm tired of dying so often.
On this playthrough, I was about 2/3 through the game, and I went into accessibility and I turned on snap aiming and turned on invincibility because I was like, I've done a lot of this already, and I was just like, I don't want to fight these guys anymore. I'm so sick of it.
Yeah.
So I just turned on invincibility and like ran through like a god and just got
there. That comes back to sort of a lot of the criticisms we were talking about earlier. Is like the main way, I think probably all of us here were engaged with this game is through the narrative. And again, you run into this, like you want to move, like because that's how you're engaged, you want to move the narrative forward, and having basically busy work get in the way of you engaging with the game in the way you want to. I mean, at least those accessibility settings exist, I guess. But
and you know what? Like when I turned on immortality, like I didn't stop having fun in any way, shape, or form. Because like you still have to like do all the platforming, you still have to solve all the puzzles, you still have to win the combat encounters. Like you can't die, but you still have to like beat the thing and follow the mechanics or whatever. So it's like it was still really fun. And so now I'm like, if you ever want to play that game again, just turn on invincibility and you'll have a lot more fun.
Nice.
Good
Damn.
tip.
Because the difficulty spikes in parts where I'm just like,
Yep.
it's
Like
so frustrating.
Unnecessarily, yeah.
The last room, the last sort of big encounter
With
where
the
you're going
dishes.
up, where you're just going up level by level. Some of those were
Mhm.
so hard.
Yeah.
Well, the last level I played an hour ago. That last level, you know, I had to redo it like 5 times, and I thought I finally got to the bit where I beat the thing I couldn't beat, and then like there's like 3 floating babies above me that started throwing shit at me. So I had to like, it's annoying.
Yeah, I like Patrick. I turned on the invincibility by the end because it was just because I'd gone through the ashtray maze, and it was like that was such a great experience. And I'm like, I gotta finish it. And then you're in the astral plane, and it's just like encounter after encounter after encounter. It's like I don't want to reset. Like I have this momentum going. Let's keep going.
Right, it's the momentum thing, and like whenever you die, like it never does a very good job of putting you right where, like right before the encounter. It's like you have to go back to whatever the nearest control point is, and so sometimes you have like a run to get to like the next spot.
Yep.
The fight in the Panopticon, like a lot of the times you'd have like the save point near the boss fight, but that one you were on the opposite side, and so usually there's an encounter on the bridge, and then the people would spawn in a few times, and so it's like, do you run? Well, then you get attacked by the ones that are shooting at you, and so you end up
sniping you,
and like someone's always sniping you, someone's always popping up behind you, and I got really frustrated with it. So I'm thankful that those accessibility controls is. And that's one of the things that I've been doing in games more often is because they're doing a better job with it. It's like, what kind of options can I change?
Yeah, how can I make my time more?
Yeah, especially being a busy adult, your time is more limited. Like both less time to play games and also just so many more games that are competing for your time.
Well, and that's why I liked this. That's why I like this game was like, 15, 12 hours long in a world that like I feel every developer wants to have like 100-hour game, like just a game that you always play forever. Like that's your game that you always are going to play. To have like this little sort of like, oh, I'm going to play this game for a week, 2 weeks, and then I'm going to be okay with it. And then I'm going to move on. I that was kind of refreshing for me to go from I was playing No Man's Sky before this, where I literally dumped 90 hours into No Man's Sky for no real like reason besides I just liked it, and
that's the best reason to put time into a game.
And then
to come
no, it's perfectly great, but then to come here and it's like, oh, I'm done with the game. Great, okay, now I can. What am I doing now? It was kind of refreshing for me.
For sure.
Yeah, no, I definitely like felt the pain. Like I loved, and we can gush about the ashtray maze, more here. But I just loved like all of the abilities coming together. Like you've been building up to this point, you get through that, and then like continuing the momentum into like the Stellaris fights. Although I was also pretty frustrated with like I'd die on one tower, and then like how do I get back to the previous tower? Like I thought that whole Stellaris run was like super
it doesn't like totally
convincing.
reset your progress either, so it's like I don't know. Again, there's just a lot of the like encounter and the combat stuff. It just, bottom line, it doesn't feel worth it. It's not like rewarding to do those either, which is like, I kind of feel like that's why the mod system and stuff exists a little bit. Is like, oh, we need to have combat feel like it means something, so enemies need to drop loot or something. But then those systems are kind of half baked and they don't feel rewarding even to advance in them.
Well, and then like most of the time when I encounter a mod system, I'm like, is the intention like I get them so frequently that like is the intention here that I rotate them out and like change like my playstyle every once in a while to like I've encountered a new encounter. I can't throw rocks at the floaty guys, so now I have to like figure out what my gun action is and like make that a little bit stronger so I can take those guys down faster. So I'm like, am I supposed to change how I play based on the encounter because I have all these mods that are supposed to switch out. But then
That's kind of what I did, but usually I did find, except for in rare circumstances, there were just mods that were better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, other than like certain encounters that I had a hard time with and had to like rethink how to do them, I mostly stuck with the same mods over and over again.
sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Something
in most settings, like just flat damage mods were all you really wanted. Things that let
Yeah.
you kill enemies faster and harder.
Mm-hmm.
What were you saying,
Sorry to
Steven?
interrupt.
Oh,
Yeah,
I was
sorry
just
to
gonna say, did you guys have a similar? And again, not to like get too deep into the combat, but I found that a lot of the encounters were very easy, except for certain ones which like scaled up immensely hard.
Yeah.
Yes. I think
Yeah,
those are the
there were a
spikes
lot
that
of
Patrick was
spikes,
talking
yeah.
about, where it's just like the one fight and then the boss fight, like getting, you know, the 20 encounters up to like the fight before the boss fight and the boss fight itself were just like cakewalk, and then like
Right.
the one of those two encounters, either the boss fight or the one before it, would just be like crazy hard, or introduce a new enemy that I've like never encountered with, and like if I die, I reset half an hour worth of progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, like for me, like the like when you do the mold, like the whole mold quest line, like
Right.
it's not that
the
hard
mold.
because
No.
like I don't know,
Yes.
like the mold enemies are slow, and as long as you keep your distance, they can't really hurt you, except for some of the ones that are like stationary that shoot. I
Oh
don't
my
know,
god, I hate
I
those
hate the
things.
red
Oh,
shit.
those
circle
are worse.
ones.
Those are
whatever those are.
Shoot the
But like,
needlers.
it's not that difficult as long as you take on that mission at the right level or whatever. But then that fucking mold boss, I think, is really
Oh,
hard.
God, that thing was so obnoxious. I don't, and
The-
again,
the-
like I felt like I got lucky. Like the second time, like this playthrough, I killed that boss on my first try, and I don't even know how I did it. It just
Oh
like
wow.
happened easily.
I
And I remembered doing it over and over again before that.
that mold boss kicked my ass until I spec'd hard into shield,
Oh okay.
Mm.
and once I spec'd hard into shield, it made it much more doable.
Okay.
But I hated that mold boss, and then when I used the shield, it became trivial. But it was just like, and that's sort of what I mean by like sometimes you'd be going about something fine. Other games would like teach you a mechanic leading up to a boss, so it's like
Yes.
you're probably gonna want like to use the
The dodge
but
action or
every
whatever. Yeah.
yeah, it's sort of like train you into something, so when you get to the end you're like, okay, like this, I've been focusing on how to fight these mold guys with my shield for all this time, so now I'm going to fight the mold bot. But the bosses didn't really have anything to do with I also had a hard time with the fridge boss. Fridge
Yes.
boss
Yeah.
took me a
Fridge
while.
baths was tough because I kept getting the ground broken out from
Yes.
under me.
Oh, I was
Mm.
so
I
upset.
kept
yeah.
walking into holes and dying.
Yes.
Yep. It wouldn't even be like that he hits me. It would be I'd forget which parts of the floor he
Yeah.
passed away, and I just
Yeah.
like strafe into them and fall.
Yeah.
back
Yes.
down.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I get it. I just got the ability to fly. Maybe I should be flying around a little bit more, but it's just like, yeah, he didn't hit me. I used my shield. You told me to use my shield, so I'm using my shield, and then it's just like, oh, but there's a hole in the ground and I fall and I die. There's nothing I can do about it. And like Eric was saying, like there's like a good 30 seconds of like, okay, we got to run up to him, we got to talk to the guy outside the thing, we have the doors closing and opening between, and then I can do it again. It was just like, okay, this should be a little bit quicker.
Yeah. Respect my
Like, there
time,
should-
please.
Like, there should be a checkpoint at the beginning of this boss if there's any chance that players will have to attempt it multiple times.
Even just just so I can get into a rhythm.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than like you're basically cooling off in between each one. Like let me like try a couple in a row.
Yeah.
Like
If there's enough time for me to check my phone and like have a bite of a sandwich in between me doing this boss fight between deaths, that might be a little bit too long. Like I want like something a little more rapid than that. You know, give me a short load screen, and then I can go back to fight the boss.
Yep.
This game had a little bit of what annoys me in some games, where it's like later the henchman enemies are just like the same kind of enemies, but just like with bullet sponge shields.
Yep.
Yes.
And it's just like, okay, this is the exact same. Like they don't act any differently. They have the same bullshit rockets and stuff, except now they're just like I have to shoot them twice. I have to shoot them 3 times before they die, rather than just the once or whatever. And it's like, he at least, I don't care if like you have multiple henchmen that, are tougher than the beginner henchmen, but like make them blue or something. Like, don't just like put a glowy shield around them and use the same models or something. It's like, and then they just take all like the sort of mini bosses you encounter, and they just like put like 4 of them in like one encounter, and you're like, I don't want to try and fight 4 of those damn rock tornado guys,
Yeah,
or
if it was like fun to fight them, then that would
Right.
be something. But they're not like fun. There's a lot of cardinal sins of enemy designs going on here, because it's like
Yeah.
vulnerability phases that are really obnoxious, regenerating shields, like sort of just like
those Healy bubbles.
yeah,
that, like,
Healy
fill the whole
bubbles.
room.
yeah, potential for hit stun. Like, it's all just things that take control away from the player.
You
It's
can't
really,
see the rockets. God damn it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Or what happens to me more times than not is you can see the rocket coming, and when you go to grab the rocket with telekinesis,
You
you
grab
grab
something else.
you grab something else.
You
Yes.
wanted this rock, right?
Yeah, you grab the clipboard from a nearby.
Or
Yeah.
what,
Here's a radio.
Yeah, it's like, I don't. And then you get hit by the rocket. And you're like, no. Why would you think I wanted this?
And it does
television?
so much damage.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter how many points you put into health. When you get hit by a rocket, it fucks you up.
Yes.
The goddamn shadow fight was impossible for that reason.
Shadow fight?
Which one?
The
Which one
fight
is
with
Shadow?
in the mirror.
Oh,
Oh.
Sedge.
Yeah, S-Edge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mirror Jesse. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
had to beat her because I wanted that coat.
That's the
mean,
best
Nice.
costume in the game.
Yes, absolutely. I did that. I deliberately did that as early as I could so that I could put that on and wear it for the rest of the game. It looks so cool.
Until the cutscenes where they like change you out or something like that.
Yeah. Put me in the really bad looking director outfit, and then I have to change back.
It's really just the hair and the director.
It's the hair.
outfit.
Yeah, it's just the hair clip thing just looks
Yeah.
not good. The rest of it looks fine. If I could even have her normal hair with it, it would be fine. But yeah.
But yeah, that Ascension or whatever, the mirror costume is the best one for sure. It looks so good. It's nice and flowy. So as you're like levitating around, it like bellows in the wind and everything.
Feel like a real cool anime psychic,
Yeah, you look like an X-Men. That's why it's
Yeah.
it's so cool.
Yeah, before we, talk about pace, or if we want to talk about the ending, if there was any, I mean, we had talked about the fights leading up to the ending, but any kind of thoughts on how it gets kind of wrapped up, or yeah, I thought Dylan, I was like expecting to have like the Dylan final boss fight kind of thing.
Yeah.
That didn't happen, so I was just like,
yeah, it's funny, like that first fake ending is like really abrupt.
yes.
It's just like, haha, actually you're the evil one, but it starts playing the credits and the music, and then I love the way it does that sort of like House of Leaves distorting credits.
You start reading and it's like, these credits are weird.
Yeah, these are weird.
It's getting weirder. Oh, it's falling apart.
And I was like, wow, that was so abrupt. I can't believe that was the way it ended. But then you get the real ending, and I'm still like, oh, that was so abrupt.
Yeah. I would say,
like, I stopped him.
Ending,
he's fine. He's in a coma. Don't worry about it. I'm the director. The end.
The fake ending was almost more effective than the real ending. Just because it does fake you out, and it gives you like just enough time to be like, wait, what? Before it like shows you something, and you're like, oh, okay. And then I actually kind of like the sequence where you're like in the fake like dream bureau.
I love that.
And you're making scans and copies. And
stuff. Again, that's like no combat, purely narrative driven segment, weird dream logic. Like that's more what I'm here for.
It's all gradually changing. Like eventually there's like the dudes with the sacks on their heads at the typewriters.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's always the one like guy sitting in the safe room. And there's always one guy just hovering in there, like everything's fine.
Yeah, it's just like that stuff was always so well done. But then when you actually get to the meat and potatoes, the final like astral run to go find Dylan, it's like, again, just the same
video game gauntlet.
same video game gauntlet with the same dudes, except now there's more of them and they have more health, and it's like,
Yeah, I think it just suffers from like not very unique encounter design. Like
Yeah.
after a while, it's sort of just like how many enemies can they put in a room, and it would a little bit of it is like, okay, this encounter is more difficult than this one because it's got these guys in it, but to a certain extent, it was just kind of like, oh, okay, so I'm gonna have to which four of these regular dudes am I gonna have to fight this time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the bosses aren't very unique, frankly. It's
Yeah.
like it's a big giant thing that here's the
I
part
think
where you hit it.
I think that's why the fridge boss is so memorable. It's like one of the few like big
Unique. Yeah.
like eldritch monsters you get to
Mm.
fight. It's not just like a hissified FBC person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
Then it's the
for a
same
game,
fight for the flamingo.
Yeah, and then they reuse that fight as well. Yes.
Yeah.
for
The
a
anchor
game that has. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
so the anchor fight was pretty cool, where he had he had that like
Sure.
shot a bunch of clocks at you, and you had to like
That was pretty good.
Yeah,
that,
it was different, you know.
yeah. But it's like they have the last final sequence of your game just be a gauntlet. It's just like, no, there's no, like, I'm more annoyed with this than I am like excited. And
Yeah, I think it's kind of bizarre that all of the like unique boss encounters are side quests. There really aren't any like the boss encounters for the main game are all pretty much just like named versions, like named tougher versions of regular enemies.
yeah.
Whereas like the things like the anchor and the fridge boss, even if they reuse them, like those are all side. You could play through just the main story and not do any of those more interesting boss encounters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like even the say what you will about the mold boss, but it was at least a unique encounter.
Yeah. It does feel odd for a game with unlimited potential in terms of like what you can do, because like you're in a wacky wild crazy world. For being in that place, you did just fight a bunch of dudes for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a bunch of humans with paranormal energy in it or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm having a really weird sort of experience in this conversation, because I remember really liking the game, but the more that I talk about it, the more I'm like, was this game not good? And if it was not good, then why did I like it so much?
And that's why Control is sort of bipolar, because like again, the main way that we I think as consumers of the game wanted to engage with it was through a sort of narrative story lens. And if you divorce that from the combat gameplay experience, then the game is fantastic.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
It's just
But
when you
also
start,
like I don't know, it's like I still feel like we need that roaming, that exploration, that sort of It is weird because I agree with you, Steven. Like I feel very like sort of split in two on this game, where it's like on the one hand, this is one of my favorite games.
yeah,
Wow.
But on the other hand, I'm like, man, I really hate playing it because I just get
100% agree.
I'm just like, oh my god, I love this part. I'm so sucked into this thing. Oh wow, what interesting information. Wow. And all of a sudden I'm like, these guys again. Really? Fuck off.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
like that was it was like it was always like this total positive or total negative experience for me. So, but at the same time, as a whole, I'm still like, I love this game.
Yeah, I mean, like I've said, like there's the two parts of the game are the narrative and the combat, and like I actually enjoy the combat aspect, and I enjoy the narrative aspect, other than maybe the repetitiveness or the countermeasures or any other bullshit part of the combat stuff. But like actually executing like how I built my character feels good, and like shooting the thing like felt good, especially with the PS5 controller, and like feeling the kickback on on like the grip or whatever. Like that felt good.
It does feel good.
And like
That was a big factor to me deciding I wanted to do a full second playthrough. Was also the PS5 editions.
It helped a lot.
yeah.
But I think I'm with you, Patrick. If they took 30%, maybe 40% of the combat out of the game and just let you just roam around a little more, I think this would be an easy, A+ game, A+ game.
Yeah,
But
if they like maybe let you clear sectors or something, so that
Yes.
like okay,
Decontaminate them or whatever.
this place is safe now. There's
Oh
no
man,
more
how
guys
good would
just
that
randomly
be?
appearing.
How good would that be if that then just had like some stock NPCs like doing their normal bureau routine in
yeah,
that sector after that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
You get a little bit of that in the central
Central executive.
Yeah.
and like the HRA lab. But yeah,
yeah,
like
but like, why not just throughout the whole place? Like when I've cleared, like when I go to a control point and I do my little like superhero slam the ground and everything normalizes.
Shifts, yeah.
Why haven't I cleared the area? Like why is it still infected? It doesn't make sense.
And that's
Mm.
that's one of the frustrating things about even at the end of the game, like Jesse's little monologues, like there's still a lot of hiss in the bureau, and we can't lift the lockdown until they're all dead, they're all gone. And it's like, fuck. After all of that, they're still
Yeah.
not
Oh,
cleared
so
out.
we're done, but we're not. Cool.
so, yeah.
Well, thanks for not making me go do all the combat to clear out all those hiss, I guess. Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you guys do the luck puzzle?
Yes,
Mm,
I
I
did.
don't think
no,
I
I
did.
didn't. No.
Which one's that one?
So
In the luck
probability,
domain.
yeah, in probability, and I think it's in research, the probability lab.
Uh-huh.
There's
Ooh.
there's sort of an unlisted puzzle you can do in there because there's all the stuff that's supposed to like it's where
There's
you
like the
find
cat and
There's a
the
cat, a
web
Yeah.
horseshoe,
cat,
and
there's
yeah.
a bunch of there's like a horseshoe you can change the orientation of, and there's a 4-leaf clover,
Uh-huh.
Ooh, I
and
think I did do that one.
then
Uh,
there's you can go in and there's a roulette wheel, and you can like gather all the stuff to win the roulette wheel.
the
Yeah.
reason that I bring it up is just because I wonder, like, with everything that we're talking about in this discussion, I wonder if they had less combat and more activities like
Mhm.
the luck puzzle, where it's kind
Yes,
of like
please.
using the knowledge around the game. It almost you almost wanted it to be like like having rooms of puzzles.
I know.
where
I'm
you
sitting
were-
here and I find myself wishing this game was a puzzle game now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like
Yeah.
the combat, like there needs to be a sense of danger still. I just
Yeah.
wish it was more like the way sort of like Resident Evil 7
Mhm.
approached it, where it's like I'm in a place filled with puzzles to solve, and occasionally there's a scary thing that's after me or something.
I have to use superpowers to get away from it or something.
Yeah, and less of a horde of mindless,
Yeah,
Dudes that
zombies.
glow red.
dudes with
Yeah,
That
generic shooter enemies with the glow red.
yeah. Because like if it was just a puzzle game, it's missing like that another element, I think. But I do think it needs a vast majority more of it needs way more of that type of puzzle stuff and just way less
And I
combat.
think that's one of the things, like that stuff is like there is stuff there, and you're like, oh man, when you find stuff like that, it's like the game is so good.
mhm.
And I think
Yeah.
that's part of why we sit there and we can talk about just how great certain aspects of the game are.
Yeah.
I'm curious
There,
what was
there.
so this game definitely has like a creepy tone to it. It's not quite horror, but it's like spooky, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
So
cosmic
what
horror.
what elements or like what parts in the game like creeped people out the most? I'm curious.
Threshold kids. Fucking
Threshold
Threshold
Kids.
Kids is the freaking
Threshold.
creepiest thing I have ever watched in my
With-
life.
Yeah.
Yes.
I watched one of them like with Mr. Bones, who's
Yes!
like a skeleton puppet who has like a half of a doll face on his face,
Yeah.
and
Oh.
and he like will yell at one of the Threshold kids for like doing badly on her like extrasensory perception test or something like that. You know?
Yeah, or like the Threshold Kid is just like it like keeps panning between like Mr. Bones and the Threshold Kid, and the Threshold Kid's just like sitting there constantly freaked out, and he's just like screaming and like shuddering away from the thing, and then it just like cuts back to Mr. Bones, and he's like, now remember, don't go in the places you're not supposed to go, and the kid's just like and like just keeps cutting back and forth between the two of them. Also just like anything that has like that kind of weird sticky, but like
Mhm.
it's
Stick
like
puppet.
stick puppet animation is just like oh yeah.
Oh, it's like if you do well enough on your test, you get to sit in the big chair. But what if I don't want to sit in this big chair? Everybody wants to sit in the big chair. It's like, oh, like why is there so much yelling?
Yeah, I mean those parts. Or also, I mean, just like anytime like you were watching those Threshold Kids episodes, you were just like in a big empty room, and I think the first time you did it, like you fell through the floor or something like that. So like that kind of like triggered something of like, is it every time I'm sitting in like the break room and watching a Threshold Kids episode, am I gonna like fall through? Like, is the wall gonna open up and eat me, or like, am I gonna fall through the floor again? Like, yeah.
I don't know. For me, there's something about the Threshold Kids videos where they're just like so, like they definitely were creepy, but they were just I couldn't really ever follow what was going on because they were just kind of so chaotic.
They're a little avant-garde, yeah.
Yeah, where I was just like, okay, like it almost couldn't hold my attention long enough for me to like get creeped out about it.
Okay.
I was just like, okay, like shut up now.
I didn't find the Threshold Kids very creepy, mostly because it almost seemed like it was funny, like it was meant there to be like a laugh for the player.
Yeah.
And so for me, like when it's funny, then it's not scary, which is like how I deal with stress and with bad feelings is I laugh about them. So maybe that was just me. But I didn't find that some of that stuff particularly creepy. I actually don't really think of anything that I found particularly creepy. I think mostly because you're so powerful so fast that there wasn't a lot to be like, like what can scare me? I'm killing the hiss, right?
Yeah, I don't really mean like mortal fear, I mean just more like for me, for example, like trying to contain the stupid rubber ducky that would turn invisible and teleport around the room, which was like a side quest for Langston. I don't know why, but that creeped me out so bad. Is the duck would just like disappear. Like when you go to look at it in the room through the window, right? It's like looking at you. And then you open the door and it's like it's turned, so it's looking at you again.
Yeah.
And then you go try to grab it and it disappears, and it's just somewhere in a corner going like quack quack. Like
that part was really good with surround sound because it
was
like the ominous quacking in the distance.
Creeped me out.
Yeah, it's like, where's that?
I'll say the closest I got to sort of that more creepy survival horror feel for me was actually in one of the DLCs, and it was because it made me, without spoiling really much, just made me feel like the early levels of Alan Wake.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Which were pretty creepy.
Or the I think the quarry was like, especially when the quarry starts filling up with like those like balls that you can't kill. Like it was just like, and you just look up and like there's just the wide open sky, and like I don't know, some of the like paperwork down there was just like, yeah, Johnson teleported here and he's been mining graphite for centuries and now he's gone or something like that. And I don't know, like that whole kind of area just kind of felt very like alien and foreign, and like, and I had to run from stuff as opposed to fighting some of the like whatever those vibration balls were.
Where are we?
Yeah.
There's a one scene where you have that vibration ball in that like test.
Yes.
Room.
Oh yeah. Where
you have to like lure lure it in. Well, if that's like one of your first times ever dealing with one of those things, like I tried to shoot it a whole bunch, and that's not how you do it. So it's like then you just run around forever trying to figure out how to do it, and like that's a creepy time. I was like, oh no, this is Jason. How do I stop Jason from the unstoppable being?
That was another example of kind of the encounters that I thought were a strong point of the game. Like that is, that room is essentially a puzzle, and I thought it was really, thought it was a really great, like it lent itself really well to the themes. It's like I have to contain this thing. It's out of containment, and I have to put it back into containment.
Yes.
To get through the room.
For a game that was, where the lore is about a whole bunch of stuff that you can't contain, and this is partly just a video game thing, you sure didn't do a lot of containing. You did a lot more killing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And less
or
containing.
Like purging, whatever that was.
Yeah.
And destroying the office space.
Yes. You spent a lot of time just fight your way to the thing, and then Jessie holds her hands at it for a second, and the hiss gets blasted out of it, and then good job.
Yep.
I guess it'll go back to its cell now or something.
Something.
Or
Yeah.
Polaris is absorbing the power for itself.
Also,
Mm.
maybe.
So
Save
what
that
do
for
we think of?
theory hour.
Yeah. So what do we think of, like? Yeah, I guess if the I guess what do we think of the replay value? Like, I definitely, the fact that I didn't take, like, I kind of just specialized in like two things and like only run around with one gun. Like, I do think there's some replay value of just like changing up my character too much, and like maybe going back and doing some of the story stuff that I glanced over, or like the side quests that I skipped, or doing some of the DLC. But
Well,
it's kind of what I think about replay, and it's short enough that I could probably put 10 hours in and probably get through another playthrough or something.
so here's my problem with the replay value, right? Is the only things that you could change is the stuff that we don't like about the game.
Yeah, that's what I was
Right?
thinking.
Like we like the game for all the puzzles and the mystery and the exploration aspect of it. Once you play a game once, all that stuff is done for you. So
Yeah.
the only way to make it different to replay it again is to change out your loadout of using mods that are dumb to kill people differently that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, because like this was also a second playthrough for me, and I forgot a lot of the puzzle,
Oh, sure.
like
It was long enough
ways to
for me
solve
too.
it.
Yeah.
Like I had to basically redo all the puzzles because I didn't remember most of them.
Yeah, I didn't remember how to do that, so it still felt challenging, and like there was a lot of story moments I forgot, and
Yeah, one thing sorry, I'll let you finish, Patrick. My bad.
so it's like there's still like replayability there since having replayed it. I was like, oh right, that's pretty cool. So I know that I'll return to this game again. I'll definitely want to play it again someday, but it's like it needs a cooling off period where like
Sure.
I need to forget how to solve everything. I need to forget how much I hate fighting things and just be like, oh right, I want to go play a game that's just really existentially out there.
Yeah, I think for me the replay aspect in this game, like Brian said, I'm not replaying it to try new builds. Honestly, I'll try and do accessibility things to make the combat a little less tedious if I do so again. But the replay value for me here is sort of akin to like rewatching a movie that I like
sure.
a lot,
Mhm.
Okay.
and there are certain things, especially if you get a little more familiar with the narrative, like you do pick up on some things that are hinted at early that is sort of rewarding to see seeded through there. You can read a lot more context into like the stuff that Darling is saying and a lot of the things and stuff if you have more context to apply to it. So
Yeah,
from that aspect, like
even in
there is a bit of
like
replay value there. Yeah, go ahead.
even in dialogue, like what you're saying, Kev, there's a lot of things I noticed, like like especially when Jesse's meeting people for the first time and
Mhm.
everything, that just sort of hint at the greater scope of what's happening
Yeah.
that I didn't catch the first time through because I was so just like trying to take it all in and doing my best to understand it. But once like the veil has sort of been removed and you can play through it again, you're like, oh, I know exactly what they're talking about. Or like, oh, I can't believe they're referencing that already.
Yeah,
Mm.
I definitely have a more holistic view of sort of the story and what was going on sort of off screen at a lot of points during it and stuff, having sort of gone through it multiple times now.
So, all right. So, for those who haven't only done one playthrough, would you prefer to just play through it again like it is, or would you prefer to have like a new game plus sort of thing added to it, where it's like it's harder, but you start off with all your abilities already?
Oh,
I
fuck
mean,
no. I will
No,
never play
yeah.
this game again without turning on immortality, honestly.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I think like Patrick, once again, just like turning on immortality and like not worrying about like the difficulty. And like I think it's short enough that like a movie you could come back to it over and over again. But it's like, yeah, some of those combat encounters, it's like right now, having just finished a couple days ago, it's like I don't really want to do that. Or it's like I don't know how much experimenting I could do with my build that would make me come back. And it's like I still have some DLC I have some side missions that I can do, and I could still experiment. But it's like I don't see myself coming back just to be like, oh, let's try a different build out.
I do recommend it. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I actually didn't even I liked it, but I wasn't really invested enough in what came after to even get through the DLC.
Mm.
I didn't know how to start it, and they don't really make it clear. And so I was like, I could look it up, I guess, but I just haven't really I don't know, like knowing that I'm the idea of fighting more of those enemies without, you know, I just haven't like found it in me to like go and play it, you know, go through it and play it a second time, let alone like start from the beginning.
Yeah, the DLC is just side missions, honestly. They pop up in your mission.
They are.
Okay.
That said, I recommend the Foundation DLC is fairly mediocre. I'll say it gives a little more perspective into sort of how the Bureau was established. If you're into that sort of world building side of it, but I will say for any fan of Alan Wake, like play the AWE DLC.
Yeah.
It's pretty good, and it was kind of nostalgic for me, just from an Alan Wake perspective too.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved the some of the, and we didn't even talk about like the Remedy universe. That's like it does Control set up a Remedy universe because Alan Wake is involved. I thought it was pretty good.
They have already confirmed that their next game is going to take place in the shared like Control Alan Wake setting.
Nice.
Awesome.
Nice.
And I'm here for it. And I'll play that game, and I'll like it, and I'll complain about the combat in that one too. Yeah.
Quite likely.
Yeah. I complained about it in Alan Wake too. Again, one of my favorite games. But like, I was like, why am I shooting all these things? Why can't I just kill them with light?
And I have the Alan Wake has the same issues this one does, which is almost like, why haven't I don't know, like someone needs to shake them and be like, hey, don't do the shoot stuff, please.
Yeah. No guns.
No guns.
Yeah.
Like Alan Wake is so much better when you have just the flashlight than when like the rest of the game starts.
I got a shotgun. Then when it jumps the shark and like you're fighting shadow creatures, you know, at the carnival or whatever, at the big rock show,
shooting fireworks at them to destroy them and stuff. Yeah, Alan Wake escalates quickly into jumping the shark in its own narrative.
It's like, just kidding, action game.
Yeah.
But yeah, in any case, I thoroughly enjoyed the AWE DLC in a way that I did not enjoy the Foundation DLC as much.
Kev, in Foundation, I just have a question, like lore-wise, because I'm assuming we learned some more things.
Yes.
Do we learn any more about the board?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of it is sort of speculative, but yeah, I mean,
there's just more teasing or something, at least.
No, I mean, there's a lot. You have to sort of infer a lot. It's not like spelled out for you, but yeah, I mean, the whole core of the Foundation DLC is about the board and the former, which is the fridge monster.
Yeah.
Okay. It's implied that the former is called the former because he's a former board member.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that's
that. Yeah, and like that's honestly, I know we're not talking theory crafting, and I'm not trying to get us on that train necessarily, but to me, that's the most interesting thing about this game is just like all the mystery and just trying to like piece together what everything is and how it works.
Absolutely. So yeah,
I really, really want a TV show that's just about the Federal Bureau of Control. I really want it.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was wondering, like, when I put replayability up there, like, I had a fun enough time with the combat, and I'm like, am I missing much by, like, the fact that I never interacted with 8 of the 10 guns that are even capable of making? But
I just don't think you really did, from my perspective.
Yeah.
Not enough to justify a whole nother playthrough focusing on, like, a different gun type or something.
Yeah. Cool, and then we can kind of wrap this up with like, I don't know, final thoughts of like 30 seconds for everybody to just kind of like talk about the fun, you know, if you had to put it up in 30 seconds of, you know, what are the good stuff, what are the bad stuff. And why don't we start off with Brian?
This game is great when it comes down to detail and story and tone and feelings, but then it runs itself into trouble when it tries to be a video game. Is that good? Is that a good?
Sure, no, good.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, I think, yeah, I enjoy the for me, I enjoy the combat, I enjoy the narrative, but the combat and the narrative just like don't connect enough. Like, just
Sure.
there's some kind of break in the chain that doesn't make sense to me. But like, I enjoyed shooting things, and the way I played, I enjoyed like my play style, and like the narrative felt really good, and I love everything that's like I love. I think a game can, for the most part, I think a game can only be improved by live action, but that's hit or miss with everybody. But yeah, I enjoyed the narrative, I enjoy the pace, I enjoy the bite size of it, but yeah, some of the combat overstays its welcome. Moving on to Eric.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I love the narrative. I love the exploration and like figuring out what's going on and exploring it. I think there were some really cool moments, and like especially I keep going back to like the ashtray maze and just how fun and like all the little parts that came together for that. And it's like, oh, that was a really cool moment. But yeah, like the combat can get a little tedious, and like in between some of those cool moments, it's like, ooh, okay. If you're gonna play it, definitely turn on invincibility and don't worry about this slogging through some of the combats as much.
Nice.
There's one thing that I just thought of that maybe it would be interesting to discuss, is the reading all the side stuff.
Mm.
I know that I was reading obsessively everything that I picked up for like the first maybe third of the game, and then as time went on, and I was like trying to get through the story, I stopped reading a lot of that stuff, and I was always like, I'll go back and read it. I'll go back and read it. And then I never did.
Same.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the main ways I engaged with the narrative and the story, so I never stopped reading, and I found it really rewarding the whole way through to keep reading those.
Yeah, I made a point to read all of this stuff, and like the connections that you're able to make were sometimes pretty cool, and sometimes were just kind of zany and out there, which is I think is what their intention was.
Some of them are jokes, but
And
Yeah.
usually I really enjoy that kind of like storytelling, but especially I don't know, like after a while, as I was like, I think there was a tipping point for me where like, because I was having to deal with all the mods and having to do the repetitive combat and having to then like read every piece of information that came in,
Sure.
like I sort of feel like if they had cut one or two of those things, like I would have much preferred if I was like exploring this place and then find things to read to piece it together, and then not have random encounters or not have mods. I was just curious if other people played like I did, because I was like, okay, I'm gonna read all this because this is all really good stuff. And then after a while, I was just like,
That's exactly what happened with me, Steven. The first half of the game, I read everything, I listened to everything, I watched everything, and then I think in the last like quarter of the game, in both playthroughs, I was like so eager to just finish that I just was like, I'm over it. I just want to get done with this. I want to wrap this story up.
Yep.
And so I was very excited to collect it all in like a I'll read this later kind of sense, but I stopped reading it in the moment, and then I just never went back.
I think part of it's there's just so many, and like
Yes.
not only are there ones for like every item, but then there's like the supplements, and I just got like it was just like you get so much of it, and there's so many of them.
Yeah, there's so
partway
many.
through, I just got bored, and I think I'm not the biggest fan of like find all the story collectibles and find all the journal entries. Like I'm not a big fan. Like I'm much more of like a visual person, so it would be like I would have loved if we could have like flashbacks or something like that.
Show
I really
don't
like
tell kind of.
yeah. In I was playing Star Wars Fallen Order, and they would do like visual ones, and like yeah, it's still like it was a little bit better than just like here's another document that you have to read.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm just kind of done with that type of thing in games in general. It makes sense in Control because it's an office space, and so there would be memos and documents around everywhere.
I'm normally in the same camp with you guys on this stuff. I don't really like to read lore collectibles that much. I don't know. I think maybe it's because I like SCP articles so much or something. Control was sort of an exception to that for me. And that might just be my own sort of personal preference and engagement.
No, and it comes like that baggage comes with the setting or the
and I feel like it fits in. I just got bored. Sure. There's just so much, and it was like, do I really need to read these?
And at the same time, as much as I hate reading like lore collectibles, I love audio. Audio log. I love audio logs. Yeah. I just wish this game commits a cardinal sin where it's like once I start the audio log, you got to let me walk away from the thing.
Yes.
I'm fucking busy, man. I'm like fighting hiss over here. I got this shit to do over here. Like I'm cleaning out monsters from the drains. Like you got to let me listen while I move.
Yeah, making that making the choice to make those proximity based was a bad choice.
Well, it says so much to like what BioShock did. BioShock did this like 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you could move while you listened.
That, you know, a lot of people sort of make fun of it. You know, like the audio log kind of trope. But I think it's really good because
audio logs.
Yeah, because it lets me continue to play the game while interacting with the story, as opposed to like, you know, because I really like having to sort of like arcanely like put out a bunch of books and hyperlinks and be like, okay, wait, what's this thing? I like having to dig with it, but also like I don't want it to interrupt my gameplay.
Yeah.
You know, if that is the game, then I like digging around for it. Or even on my own time, being able to go and like look it up, like look this information up
on
later.
Bungie.net.
I don't mind that so much because I can like do it on my phone at another time.
Wow, I was not expecting an outspoken preference for the Bungie.net method of text log delivery.
If I can look at it another place, like at another time, that's fine, because like that I can do that like when I'm waiting for my sandwich to be finished, and I can, you know, like while I'm thinking about going home and playing the game. But when I want to sit down and play the game, I want to play the game.
Yeah,
I kind of agree. Like I haven't read I didn't read all the Destiny logs when or the whatever they were called when I was playing, but I do like this. Like if I could take all the control stuff that I collected and read it while I'm on the toilet or something, then I'm all for it. But like while I'm in an office and there's like shit happening around me and I got to go help Ati clear fungus out of wherever, you know, I'm like, I don't have time to sit here and read this. Like I got to go do stuff.
Yeah.
And if you design your audio log well enough, like you could be telling them something as it's happening to them in real time.
Matters around them. That was something I was thinking about. There's not a lot of games I've seen that like plan like have audio logs start and then have it sort of happen at the same time something else is happening in a narrative way in the game. I feel like that's something untapped that I haven't seen very much in video games.
Yeah, I was just thinking back to the BioShock example of like, I feel like there's one time where like, I don't know, the dude's talking about something, or you're entering a new, like, hey, there was a shootout in the cafeteria or something, and you just see like 3 dead people who are all shot or something, and you're like, oh, like maybe this happened recently or something like that.
I love that. I think that's a great tool.
That kind of stuff is great. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said, this game's a bit of an anomaly for me on that, but yeah, generally very much prefer things like text logs or not. Like I honestly think that an overabundance of lore collectibles is not a good thing for most games.
Yeah, generally not.
No. Okay.
And the vast majority of players don't read them or interact with them. So like if they're important, they should be in the game as gameplay or narrative.
What if, and I know we're like leaving this area behind because computers are getting fast enough, but like what if during load screens, it like you had your lore things that you collected like up and you could like read them?
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Sure.
That would be
that would have been brilliant 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Now we're past it.
Yeah.
Now load screens aren't long enough to even have tips anymore.
I can't. I don't have time to read the like 1-sentence tip on my load screen anymore. So,
Yeah.
Man, I gotta update to the next gen. I was
Yeah.
playing on the
There you
PS4
go.
Pro, and it was like some of the load screens are long.
Yeah.
load times are going down
Yeah.
for sure.
If there's even
Well,
a screen for you to look at while you're loading and not just like you shimmying between a bookshelf or whatever.
Yeah, that's the
Well,
other thing.
yeah.
Hidden load screens are also
On the rise.
a big thing.
Yeah.
yep.
Kevin, I think we interrupted the final thoughts.
Yeah, sorry to
through,
derail.
No problem. I think that was another great point to like talk about.
That was the one thing
lore.
I realized that I was like, I'm gonna bring it up in my final thoughts, and then it's like, oh, I bet everyone has something to say.
So that's definitely a bigger discussion. It's worth getting to.
Yeah.
Closing thoughts for me.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. So this has probably been pretty obvious through this whole thing. I love Control.
Mhm.
I went into this talk sort of bracing myself for to have to defend it, and then I found that as we talked about it, no, I agree. It's a very flawed game, and much in the way that every Remedy game I've played is. And but at the same time, I think that it does a lot of things that are awesome and very special, and it is in a lot of ways one of my favorite sort of narrative gaming experiences I've ever had. So yeah, really kind of a tale of two halves for Control. But I would still recommend it to people
Mm.
if I think that they'll engage with it in a way that that they'll enjoy, and they're not just here to shoot things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Final thoughts, Patrick?
Yeah, Control is one of my favorite games. I love so many things about it, and because I love it so much, I think that's why I can be so critical toward it, because if I could have it my way, it'd be 50% more ashtray maze and 50% less shooting stuff. And that would be just like the perfect balance. But for the most part, I think it's a feat of a game. Just the detail of like, and the design of like the play space that you're in, and the, I don't know, graphical fidelity is really great. I think the performances, all the VO is excellent. Like I think it's an incredible game, and I think I would recommend everybody play it if you can. And if for whatever reason you find the combat frustrating, just turn on invincibility mode and you'll have the best time. You'll just feel like a superhero. The game will still challenge you in other ways, just not in combat ways. So
great.
Said.
Final thoughts, Steven?
I think Control is a wonderful game that is that I think would be up. I think that it's bolstered by its incredible tone and story, but it's weighed down by its sort of like clunky and in some ways like outdated sort of gamer goopy goblin brain game design. I think that like what Patrick was saying, had they cut a lot of the combat, I think it would be really on the top of a lot of people's lists. But I feel like it kind of lives in that niche space for people who really want something kind of narrative and tone driven, because like the gameplay sometimes feels a little bit mismatched from the kind of from the tone. I feel like the more powerful you get in games like this and the more combat focus is on things, the sort of more steps away you get from your initial like investigatory, like sort of design space that you feel when you first walk into it. And some of these rooms and places that are really mysterious when you first walk into them become really mundane and repetitive when you have to fight the same enemies over and over again, to collect the same mods over and over again. The game with infinite potential, they really limited themselves by a very limited palette of game design elements.
Well, cool. I would like to thank you all for being here and playing through this game for the Friend Zone. I'll just do a quick outro and then we can kind of hang out and do whatever we want after this.
You need a sound effect that comes when you say friend zone.
That's true. Yeah, I'll have to work on that.
What if it's like, oh, I'll hold your coat?
Thank you, everybody. Be right back. Cool. Well, that was our Friend Zone episode for the month of March 2021. We played through Control. Like we said, I think most of us really liked the kind of narrative in the world that they set up. But some of the combat stuff did drag them down. I particularly enjoyed some of the combat stuff, but there was just kind of a weird disconnect. But I would like to thank Brian, Eric, Kevin, Patrick, and Steven for playing through it. And yeah, I'll have a link down in the description for my entire playthrough. If you want to just kind of see my playthrough and what I thought as I was playing through it, that'll be down in the description below. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy this content. If you do, follow, like, and subscribe to me on YouTube and Twitch so you can see more great content like this. I hope you have a super day. I hope you have a super month. And I hope you have a super day. Catch you in the friend zone the next time.